this late night chat with y'all, and I appreciate you joining me. I was with my family and I was keeping up to date with the Manhattan shooting. Sat down and I finally caught up with everything. And I decided not to post anything because there are a lot of conspiracy theories going, some fake AI images of the suspect. And every time there is a shooter, there is a prayer. Let's call it the minority prayer, the POC prayer. And the prayer goes to something like this. And just follow me, I'll explain it. Please, oh, please do not let the shooter be a person of color, black person, Asian, especially not Muslim. Let it be a white man. Now, why? It's not because we have anything against white people, not at all. It's because, well, first and foremost, most mass shootings are done by white folks, but not exclusively. This is a country that has more guns than people. This is a country that has mass shootings almost on a weekly basis. I just remembered, as of today's shooting in New York, which left 4 people dead, including a cop. There was just one, 2 days ago in Michigan, right? And the reason why we make this prayer is we realize when it's a white man, white people will not have to apologize for the criminal actions done by one crazy, unhinged, mentally unstable white gunman. White people will be safe. They will not have to apologize. They will not have to condemn. They will not have to prove their moderation. When it is a person of color, usually not always a black person or a Latino or undocumented immigrant or a Muslim, then our entire community has become suspect, right? And then the right wing, very predictably, as they have always done for decades, they come out with their bad faith right wing talking points that get laundered through mainstream corporate media. And we know it's bad faith, but nobody stops it. And so, as this was happening, folks, we were trying to figure out who the suspect was. I saw a video, it was like a Palestinian speaker, right? And then I saw another one, it was a Middle Eastern man. And then briefly on CNN, someone said allegedly a white suspect, and later they corrected it. The suspect, as of now, folks, is apparently a 27-year-old young man, Shane Tamura, from Las Vegas, who was apparently radicalized, played high school football, who, in America just casually walked with an AR-15 style rifle, as one does, because this country is absolutely batshit crazy, where we have more guns than people, where apparently people need AR-15s, even though the founders, when they considered the Second Amendment, right, they didn't have AR-15s or friggin' semi-automatic rifles. But this is America, and the NRA gives a whole bunch of money for Republicans to be in the bed with them and these Second Amendment nuts. Who don't want any restrictions on their guns, even though semi-automatic rifles or AR-15 rifles just completely tear apart through our children. Yes, children, because the number one killer of children and young teens in America for the past 2 years is gun violence. But this country says, another mass shooting, another school shooting. Onward we go. So again, there was just a mass shooting. It was actually a stabbing incident, excuse me, in Michigan, right? And you saw the same parallel. When we were trying to figure out who the suspect was, just recently, you had Laura Loomer, an Islamophobe, who, by the way, is such an unhinged Islamophobe that even Marjorie Taylor Greene says this lady is way too racist, right? This is a woman who's so unhinged. I remember she handcuffed herself to Twitter headquarters. She was deplatformed. This is such an obscene nut, an Islamophobe through and through. And this woman, Laura Loomer, has had special meetings with Donald Trump at least twice. This woman just posted a couple of days ago that she had a meeting at the State Department. These are the people who influenced Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump listened to Laura Loomer, an unhinged, notorious Islamophobe and bigot, and apparently took her recommendations on who to punish during the first Signalgate scandal. And as a result of her counsel, not the counsel of his, national security experts, Laura Loomer, who was invited to the White House for a 30-minute briefing with Donald Trump. Go check it out, right? These are the notes I keep, the receipts, because everyone else forgets. He then, got rid of 2 folks for the Signalgate. Didn't get rid of Pete Hexa, got rid of these 2 individuals based on Laura Loomer. So that Laura Loomer, who's an Islamophobe, hold on, let me see. There you go. I want to get her tweet. Breaking. The suspect who just shot and possibly killed an NYPD officer in New York City is being described by witnesses as a Middle Eastern man with an AR-15 rifle. Zoran Mamdani and the trend of nominating electing Muslims to run for office in the U.S. is empowering Middle Eastern people and people who support the Free Palestine movement to kill cops. It will get worse when Mamdani is mayor of New York City. It's time for the Trump administration to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Mamdani is in Uganda. He's not even in the city. He ain't the mayor of the city. Okay. This shooter, again, is not Muslim, is not Middle Eastern. But you saw Laura Loomer jump. She just jumped on it, right? Middle Eastern man, Zoran Mamdani, who's not Middle Eastern, Zoran Mamdani, the trend of nominating, electing Muslims to run for office is somehow empowering these Middle Eastern people who support Free Palestine movement to kill cops. Nope, not a Middle Eastern man, not an immigrant, was a citizen. We're trying to find out more about this young man, apparently radicalized, 27-year-old Shane Tamura from Las Vegas. Now, this is why MAGA is quiet, because for the whole day, they've been spending, all their energy saying it's a Middle Eastern man, it's a Middle Eastern man, it's a pro-Palestinian man. Oh, they killed cops, they killed cops. The cop who was killed, folks. You guys figured it out? You know who it was? The cop who was killed was a immigrant originally from Bangladesh, in his 30s. He is a Muslim, Officer Islam, who was killed by this man. He leaves behind his wife, who is pregnant. He has two kids, and apparently she's 8 months pregnant, and they were waiting for their third kid. The Darul Islam, 36 years old, immigrant from Bangladesh, and a 3.5-year veteran of the police department stationed in the 47th precinct in the Bronx. Quote, he was saving lives, he was protecting New Yorkers, said Mayor Adams. He embodies what the city is all about. He's a true blue New Yorker, not only in the uniform he wore. Charlie Kirk, that piece of shit, I rarely swear, but F this mother to the ends of the earth. This is what he said earlier today. Was just in New York City all weekend with her family. Never felt safe. So many people in the city who don't belong. Let me repeat. So many people in the city who don't belong. Huh. Praying for all involved. First and foremost, you're a coward. Okay. There are people who live in New York who are older, who are younger, who are women. They don't whine like little bees like you, Charlie Kirk. All right. Second of all, why were you in New York City all weekend with your family when you whine and complain about it being a hellhole? Also, just like JD Vance, whine and complains about my home state of California, but took his family to California and to Disneyland, right? Quote, so many people in the city who don't belong. Like Officer Islam, the NYPD officer, 3.5 years, who was on the force, who was just killed by a U.S. citizen, not an immigrant, not a Muslim. By all counts, he seems like a black man from Las Vegas who was radicalized. And oh, by the way, if we're thinking about talking about ethnicity, notice that there was another shooter, Vance Bolter. Remember Vance Bolter last month? Oh, yeah, that Trump voting Republican, white Christian nationalist who had a list of 70 targets, and he shot 4 individuals and killed elected official Melissa Hortman and that Vance Bolter. Remember him? Oh, yeah, you don't. Completely scrubbed from the media. Nobody is talking about Vance Bolter, who literally committed terrorism, political terrorism, ideological terrorism, wanted to punish liberals who were pro abortion. This is a man who was also radicalized in part by QAnon. The same conspiracy that has been promoted by Donald Trump and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi that radicalized, wait for it, Ashley Babbitt. Who's Ashley Babbitt? One of the 1,600 people or so who were violent insurrectionists. Not all of them were violent insurrectionists, let me be fair, who were incited by Donald Trump to come and attack the U.S. Capitol and overturn a free and fair election. And some of them came with weapons to, wait for it, assassinate Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. And some of them did what? Attacked police officers. So please tell me why MAGA gets to say that they backed the blue and law enforcement when they mocked and ridiculed the officers, like Officer Dunn and so many others, Fanon, who testified about the trauma they experienced. They mocked them, ridiculed them, did not honor them. Laura Ingraham called them, what did she call them? Crisis actors, right? Donald Trump celebrated the violent insurrection. Donald Trump went ahead and pardoned all 1,600 violent insurrectionists, including the violent ones with violent criminal records who were convicted of trying to beat up, not trying to, they beat up police officers. They assaulted them with flagpoles, bear mace, right? They brought ropes, they punched them, they used rails against them. I mean, think about the trauma. These men were outnumbered and outgunned, and they still did their job to protect these pieces of shit Republicans who were hiding like cowards, right? These guys protected them. And then they came back and said, well, Donald Trump is pardoning them, so crisis actors, and they're just whining and complaining. And Josh Hawley, who cosplays like a man, did that, that thumbs up, remember? And then they saw a video of him doing what? Running for his life. So all of this is to say, is I'm witnessing this in real time, right? You saw Laura Loomer, who tried to weaponize the other event that happened in Michigan recently, right? Where just recent, where there was another victim, and she was like, "There you go. What are the odds that the person who went on a stabbing rampage in Michigan today is a Muslim immigrant?" This is Laura Loomer. Michigan has been invaded. Deport them all. This was the mass stabbing inside Walmart in Michigan just a couple of days ago as a suspect knifed multiple shoppers. Anyone want to take a guess if it was an immigrant or a Muslim? White man. White man, just unhinged. Just went on a freaking knifing spree and stabbed all these people. So you'd think she'd learn her lesson, but nope, had to jump on it, had to jump on it. And now they're eating crow, but they have no shame. And their great regret, if you're following Twitter, Nazi site, is how dare someone on CNN briefly allege that the suspect was a white man. By the way, he corrected himself. How dare they? We are the victims. Us. Well, folks, the number one domestic terror threat in America is right-wing terrorism. Doesn't come close. Muslim terrorism doesn't come close. Left-wing terrorism doesn't come close. I mean, they're the goats right now for the past several years running. Right-wing white supremacist terrorism is the number one domestic terror threat in America and the number one threat to law enforcement. Mass shooters, the number one mass shooter when it comes to ethnicity, hate to say it, yeah, all different folks have done it. Black folks, yeah, there's Latinos, there's Muslims. Number one, goat, white men. All right. And furthermore, AR-15, how the F did this 27-year-old so casually get an AR-15 rifle? How come these mass shootings keep happening again and again and again with AR-15 rifles, right? And then the cop who died, they're like, this Muslim killed a cop, this Middle Easterner killed a cop, oh, this immigrant killed a cop. Nope. U.S. citizen with an AR-15 type rifle killed a cop. And the cop happens to be a Muslim man, a Bangladeshi immigrant, officer Islam, who has a wife, two kids, and furthermore was expecting a baby. It's deeply tragic. Now, I was thinking about this earlier today, just randomly too, and it was like some strange, maybe type of premonition that was about to happen. I remember, some things that have gone better in life. For those I've been independent for most of my career, but I've had a foot in the mainstream. So I was a contributing op-ed writer for New York Times for 5 years. I was able to write for Washington Post and Guardian here and there, Daily Beast, columnist. And I remember since 9/11, but maybe since the Obama era, anytime there was any Muslimi terrorist, anything, right? These allies of mine who were editors used to call on me to essentially write the same article. I must have written 7 different versions of this article, and then I stopped, which was talking about the double standards, which was talking about just because it's one terrorist doesn't mean that all Muslims, right? I had to bring out all the data, just the same old story again and again and again to prove your moderation to a nameless judge, jury, and suspect that always sees you as a potential terrorist, right? But it was always a Muslim who had to do the work, right? Like, listen, overwhelming majority of Muslims don't know this freak. We condemn terrorism. Like, it's one random dude. Oh, by the way, the number one domestic terror threat is white supremacist terrorism. Look at the double standards, right? Look at how the media does the framing again and again and again and again. The one positive I could say is I no longer have to write these stories. I no longer have to do any of this media. I no longer have to talk to allies who are oftentimes white and give them the talking points because on their own, especially I think in the last 5 years, since the Trump first administration, this is something that's been interesting. Like one of the strange folks, the bar is so low it's in hell. But like one of the things that Trump did, and this goes back to 2016, 2017, is everything that we warned about, people of color, but I'm speaking now as a Muslim. Islamophobia is real. It's normalized. It's mainstream. It's acceptable. We live in a post-racial society. Trust me, white supremacy is going to go mainstream. You're just always whining and complaining. We live in a post-racial society. We elected Obama. I'm like, you all aren't paying attention, right? Trump coming out and being so open and naked and shameless with his bigotry, his Islamophobia, his nativism. A lot of folks who are on the fence. These are my friends who weren't paying attention. I remember when he did the Muslim ban. And specifically, remember the first thing he did when he got in office, Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon did their broke down version of the Muslim ban that got shot down. That was the first thing he did, week number 1. And all these diverse folks came out in the airports and said, welcome Muslims, welcome immigrants. That's when so many of my friends who said, "Okay, you're onto something. You know what? This Islamophobia. You don't want to call it Islamophobia. You want to call it anti-Muslim bigotry. Holy shit! I think you were right." And then there was kind of a light bulb where people were more aware of, like, oh, that's what they're doing. Oh, okay, they're saying Obama's a Muslim. That's BS. And they're saying Muslims are taking over. No, they're not. And the anti-Sharia legislation and the Muslim ban. Oh, and so in a strange way, what Trump's bigotry did, open bigotry, is, yes, it unfortunately won him the election twice, but it nonetheless woke up a whole bunch of people who weren't taking it seriously. That's what happened with BLM. That's also what happened the murder of George Floyd. You heard so many of our fellow Americans say, oh, Black people who've been talking about police brutality, they weren't just whining and complaining. Look at this. Black folks, unarmed, jogging, walking, driving, are being shot like hotcakes by the police. They might be onto something. And slowly but surely now I think people are waking up. Oh, undocumented immigrants and Latinos. Huh. Maybe this draconian policy we have where we dehumanize immigrants isn't a good thing. Maybe having masked armed ICE agents terrorize our communities and go after friggin' people who are working at Home Depot or hanging around 7-Eleven, or maybe going after our children in schools isn't a good thing. Courtney, thank you. I'm awakened, right? So that is the one positive here, because what I noticed is no editor called me. I didn't get any texts. No one asked me for talking points. On their own, people are calling out this bullshit of all different ethnicities, all different religions. They're like, this is nasty. I mean, I'm looking on my Blue Sky on Twitter. All these different folks are calling out Charlie Kirk's bullshit. All these different folks are calling out Laura Loomer for her racism, right? And that is like, gosh, folks, the bar is so low, it's in hell. But it's one comfort. And furthermore, people are looking at the double standard and the hypocrisy, right? Because it's so shameless and naked. MAGA, you care about cops, the same cops that your allies beat up on January 6th, yet those same cops that you mock and ridicule, yet you don't give a shit about cops. And now that the cop is a slain Muslim immigrant, I wonder what Laura Loomer and Charlie Kirk will say. If anyone knows what they've said, I haven't seen it yet. Someone should ask them. Now that the cop is identified as Officer Islam, an immigrant from Bangladesh and a Muslim, what are your thoughts? And now that the shooter is a U.S. citizen, just like the stabber in Michigan, what are your thoughts? Huh. So I feel like it's important to call these people out. I feel like it's important to address the double standards. I feel like what's common to me necessarily isn't common to everyone, and people who are not woke to this get lulled into it. And maybe, just maybe now, some people can like wake up and be like, oh shit, this is what it's about. I want to repeat to you what Charlie Kirk said. It's important. Was just in New York City all weekend with her family. Never felt safe. So many people in the city who don't belong. No dog whistle. When Zoran Mamdani won, yeah, he posted a photo of the 9/11 terror attacks. Zoran Mamdani was born in Uganda. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen. He's 33 years old. His family is originally from Uganda, and then originally you could trace it back to India. The 9/11 terror attacks were done by 19 foreign hijackers, none from Uganda, none from India. What's the only common link? What's the only common link? Muslim. And then, folks, just to make it just obscenely on the nose without any subtlety, I want to try to again find what Laura Loomer said, where suspect who shot and possibly killed an NYPD officer in NYC is being described by witnesses as a Middle Eastern man with an AR-15 rifle. Zoran Mamdani and the trend of nominating electing Muslims to run for office in the U.S. is empowering Middle Eastern people and people who support the Free Palestine movement to kill cops. Any of that shouldn't make sense. Does it make sense for Zoran Mamdani to condemn slogans he's never used? Does it make sense that only Zoran Mamdani is asked to critique and condemn violence done by Hamas, but all the unconditional supporters of war criminal Netanyahu are never asked, do you condemn? Do you defend? Why do you defend? Never. Have you noticed that? Schumer's never been asked that. Richie Torres has never been asked that. Jeffries has never been asked that. Why do you unconditionally support war criminal Netanyahu? Do you condemn the IDF shooting at unarmed, starving Palestinians gathered at food aid sites, right? Laura Loomer continues, it will get worse when Mamdani is mayor of New York City. It's time for the Trump admin to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. This shit's been happening since 9/11. It happened when Obama was elected. When Obama was elected, folks, people forget that the person who was the champion of the racist and anti-Muslim birther conspiracy was Donald Trump. And lo and behold, who gets elected after our first black president? A white supremacist president, right? And Obama's not Muslim. If he is Muslim, worst Muslim of all time. But go back and remember, folks, if you're old enough like me, because they said he was Muslim, Muslim became a slur. And some people thought because he was a Muslim, he was what? Foreign, un-American, anti-American. They did the same conspiracy theories about the Muslim Brotherhood taking over America, that Obama had implemented the Muslim Brotherhood in the Congress. He was going to implement Sharia. It's a reboot with Mamdani. So this is what we saw today. And it's one of those situations where it's a tragedy. Four people have died. The officer who was killed was an immigrant. The suspect so far is a citizen, not a Muslim, not a Middle Eastern person who had an AR-15 style rifle. This happens every week in America. It's the only country on the earth where this type of shit happens week after week after week after week after week. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Thoughts and prayers, folks. Thoughts and prayers have said, don't bother us anymore. Implement gun control for the love of God. Um, this is where we are, folks. This is where we are. And the number one domestic terror threat in America, again, is right-wing terrorism. And the people who claim to be about law and order and security celebrated the pardoning of 1,600 violent insurrectionists. So I'm done. I don't give them any quarter. I come after these bad faith people. I bring all the receipts. If you've been watching and this was helpful, bring these receipts with these people. There should be no reason you should treat them in good faith because they have no good faith. They are shameless people. And I know you can't shame shameless people, but for all the other people who get like confused by all the noise, right? This is for them, right? The same people who don't give a shit about law and order because they elected a criminal president, support a violent insurrection, don't back the blue because they celebrate the beating up of police officers, right? F them when they talk about security. F them when they talk about law and order. F them when they talk about protecting the cops. And their racism is so shameless and naked that once it's their guy, Vance Bolter, silence. Have you all heard a word about Vance Bolter, folks? Tell me. It's like been completely friggin' removed from all the news media, right? Like no one talks about it. Can you imagine if, oh, I don't know, it was a progressive shooter with a list of 70 Republicans and he actually shot and killed some Republicans? Nonstop coverage. Nonstop coverage. And this is where, folks, even corporate media has been utterly complicit and weak and pathetic. This both sides framing to appease bad faith right wing grievance, where we move the Overton window further and further to the right. And as I said earlier, I'll say again, the only reason corporate media is following the Epstein scandal, finally having courage, finally having spine, finally doubling down, Christine Welker finally did it, foreign journalists did it, is because MAGA's leading the way. Because Rupert Murdoch doubled down on this. And because they've been giving a green light by right-wing media, this is what's given courage to corporate media and these center-left outlets, folks, because it's always, always, always affirmative action for conservatives. This regime and cult are disgraceful. No, I appreciate it, Marguerite. Yeah, you sound like my parents. My parents are very funny. They're like, don't speak out too much against this regime. They're crazy. And then they call back, it's good that you speak out. We need people like you, but also be safe. Then they say, but just don't mention them by name. But then they say, but it's good that you speak out. Don't be cowards like everyone else. And this was after I saw Stephen Miller. I did this Facebook. I think I did a Substack Live where I took my kid to return a Lego set at Tyson's Mall. And I saw Stephen Miller with his wife and kids getting into two cars. They weren't driving the cars, which meant this mother effer has our taxpayer dollars are paying for two drivers and security. And he put his family in the car. And then I had to cross him to get to the Tysons. I felt compelled. He was like right where you are to me. I was on the sidewalk, didn't yell, didn't get in his face, didn't spit, was very calm like this. And I said, Steven, and he stopped. And he didn't look up at me, but he stopped as he was getting in the car. He heard me. You're hurting American families. Stop it. You're hurting American families. He heard me. And then his security guard comes in and says, just move along. Watch it. Move along. And I sat there and I thought about it. I'm like, why but my son was there. So I'm so glad my son was there because I rarely get hot, but I'm like, I don't have to move along. I'm on a sidewalk. I didn't say anything to this guy. And then all of a sudden this security guard gets in my face. You better move along. And I remember I sat there, I looked at the security guard, gave it like a 2-second burn. I'm like, yeah. And then I moved. Other people said you were very civil. You should have yelled at him. I felt compelled to say something. But then my parents, ever since then, they're like, "Why? Why did you do that, Stephen Miller? This man's a freak. This man's unleashed like ICE agents. Please don't do that ever again. You have kids and you have family." I'm like, "All right." Maybe my wife's like, "Why? Why'd you do that?" I'm like, "All right, good point." But then I thought, I just couldn't resist to quote Django Unchained. I mean, I had to say something. The man is Pee Wee German, and he abducted because he's the shadow president. Him and Russell Vought. They were abducting El Salvadoran men at that time and had shipped them off to CCOT to be tortured. So, folks, I feel like we have to call this out whenever and whatever we can. It's 12:15. I didn't mean to take up so much of your time, but I was just reading the news and I wanted to get my facts straight before I did any comment on this New York City shooting. Four people have been killed. One of them was a cop. The shooter is a U.S. citizen, not a Middle Easterner, not a Muslim. However, the cop, unfortunately, who died was a Muslim, originally an immigrant from Bangladesh, Officer Islam. He leaves behind a wife and two kids, and his wife is pregnant. Right wing is pissed off because the shooter wasn't a Muslim, like Laura Loomer really wanted, like Charlie Kirk wanted, not an immigrant, is a U.S. citizen. Another AR-15 used, AR-15 style shooting used in yet another mass shooting. More guns than people in the United States of America, 400 million guns in a country of 340 million people. Number one cause of death of children and young teens is gun violence, but this country just doesn't give an F and is perfectly fine with it. When this happens in New Zealand, Australia, all it takes is one mass shooting and everyone says never again and they implement gun control. But America, it's a-okay because apparently we love the old ultra violence. So very curious to see how Republicans spend this tomorrow. And if they just forget about it, like Vance Bolter, the Republican Trump voting white nationalist who was radicalized by QAnon and had a hit list of 70 people and is in jail right now and ended up shooting four people, killing two, Melissa Horman and her husband. I hope you guys are safe tomorrow. I'm actually talking to JoJo from Jurors for the first time. I think I'm talking to her about 5 o'clock. I do believe I am talking to Jamel Hill at 4 p.m. And I might have two others on. We'll find out tomorrow. But Jamel said she'd join me at 4. And we're talking about how Donald Trump always distracts with racism. Have you noticed he's gone after, aside from Hillary Clinton, all the other people he's picked on? Have you noticed their ethnicity? Have you noticed? They're black folks and a few brown folks and Rosie O'Donnell and Hillary Clinton. Yeah, that's not a mistake. And today this is happening. And then at 5 o'clock, Jojo from Jersey, we're finally going to talk. I've never talked to her, so that's going to be fun. And I'm trying to schedule one more for tomorrow. Let's see if he responds to me. So thank you all. This has been a late night edition. I just want to get this off my chest, talk about it, connect the dots. What's, again, obvious to us isn't obvious to everyone. And, stay woke, if you will. Call this stuff out when you can. This has been The Left Hook. I've reached 75,000 subscribers. So thank you all for joining. Everything is free. There's no paywall. If you're not a subscriber, please become a free subscriber. If you have a few bucks, please become a paid subscriber. I've tried to keep it as cheap as possible. Be kind, take care of yourselves. And until tomorrow, please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Take care.